just to speak on it, the production of Retro Current Team, a nonprofit, here at CAN TV. Today's program is going to be interesting to the extent that it's like been there, done that, and here we are again. You know, back in the last regime under Trump, President Trump, there was, to my recollection, at least one author, professor, and there was a project they called 1619 or something to that extent. But there was an element of society that used that production of information, advocacy, or whatever to undo years of what we would have called advancement for the Negro, because they created another term that might have not been or might have been connected to the project called critical race theory. And that, for all practical purposes, just basically gave some elements in society the opportunity to remove Negro studies, Negro history from the curriculum in high schools and grammar schools. Although possibly, if I remember correctly, the work was basically for college students, but it turned into something that was used to disrupt achievements. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say it because I believe it. A lot of what the Negro has lost under the Trump administrations, and I don't blame Trump, I really blame, that's what I mean. I blame the damn media and these democratic reptilians, because they conspire and go along with the narrative that create a fire when it ain't even what they say. That brings us to now. We all have become accustomed to the fact that Trump said and apparently has signed into some type of executive order, the redefinition of how the function of what used to be called Department of Education will or will not exist. You have to be careful because there's so many lies out here until when you hear one thing, and because of these panic peddlers, you get misdirected. So we're gonna have a couple of clips that addresses the whole idea of what's really happening with that piece. But you should be mindful of what's happening in Illinois with this Pritzker and these others they got in Springfield. Now they have become so repressive and so disrespectful to the parents until now they are trying to force into law requirements and all type of other interference with the parents having homeschool opportunities. It's a big thing in Illinois right now. That's these democratic reptilians rising up and trying to overthrow whatever Trump tried to do. Actually, I believe that, not so much homeschooling, because you definitely gonna need, I believe, somebody that knows how to deal with curriculum and knows how to prepare your student how to take those tests. Because the student can be a genius, but if the student can't pass the test, then they're gonna play games with whether or not what you're doing is okay. And that's the game they've used against Negroes forever. And that was one of the reasons I went and got a PhD, because I said, damn, y'all, I'm tired of you trying to judge me based upon a damn test that you created that had nothing to do with me. So let me do something and let somebody else determine, a committee determine how it fits. I was fortunate. A whole lot of Negro males especially, they lost their mind, their family, and everything else they had, because the system is designed to fail us. Department of Education. And the other piece we're going to look at is this whole misdirection of what Trump did the other day as it relates to the terminology segregation. You know, a lot of us have said for a long time one of the worst things that ever happened to the Negro is them damn pimps, so-called leaders of the late 50s and the 60s. Now, every time I say it, I have to hold my tongue so I don't call their names, those that are living, because they still living and I don't want to get off in the throwing mud. But the mud is justified. That whole idea of giving up everything we had in our own areas to sit in white folks' toilets in restaurants and drink from those fountains was a spreading the misdirection that Trump is bringing segregation back to the Negro. You some ignorant people. What he's doing is, read it for yourself. But I ain't seen nothing where he said Negroes are going to be segregated. They're talking about another issue. You understand? DEI. But you don't want to deal with that. It's just like 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, birthright citizenship. You misconstrued it, but it was created for the Negro, the slave. And you idiots wanted everybody else in it. Then you got confused, and the next thing you know, you won't even have whatever you thought you had gained because you opened your arm for a bunch of illegal invaders, aliens, and now whatever you had gained is up for grabs. Now here we are. The DEI ain't gonna say too much on that because we've already talked about that. 3.8% benefit to the so-called Negro, African American. And they got you out there in the street running and talking. But yet this segregation thing is really dealing with that instead of your so-called complexion as a Negro and history as a Negro. You gotta pay attention. Hit those clips, Miss Amara, and just run through them because I try to use up enough time from the beginning so we don't have to try to comment on each clip. Y'all just look, pay attention, particularly you seniors, because you seniors already know that what retrocurrent does is look at what's behind us, before and now, what's going on. And if you look closely, those of us that have hit that 70 mark, we know we've been here before. And we see it. But they went through it during Reconstruction. But the problem is, it's always those members of the Negro group that sell out for their own benefit, everybody else. And then 60 or 70 or 100 years later, we go through this same identical process. And if you go back to history, retro, you will see almost month, date to year, exactly what we are experiencing now. That was experienced before with and doing Reconstruction. All right, Mr.
The dismantling of the Department of Education. Let me go ahead and break it down.
Come on, talk about it.
You got a whole bunch of people who think that these kids who don't get food at home will no longer get food at school because there is no DOE. First of all, it's the Department of Agriculture that handles the school meals. So there's still no child that's going to be left hungry. The next thing that I heard was that, oh my God, they're going to get rid of the Pell Grant and all of these other things so that HBCUs are going to suffer and kids who can't afford school aren't going to be able to go to school. Those instances, that subset of issues is going to be moved over to the Department of Treasury, and they're going to handle your new Pell Grants and your student aid and things like that. And then they'll say things like, oh my God, well, they're not going to fund disabilities or the IEP programs. That's being moved over to the Department of Health and Human Services. So if more black people knew that, we wouldn't have this uproar about the DOE going. And then let me also tell y'all that the DOE only pays for
Thank you for touching on that.
Yeah, the DOE only pays for 10% of K through 12 schools. Like, it's only 10% of the funding. If you genuinely believe that your state cannot recover 10% of funds to give to the DOE, which they already, to give to the school system, which they already barely give money to, sweetheart, you are sadly mistaken. And at that point, that's when you have to look at your elected officials and see what are they voting on in these budgets. What are they asking for every fiscal year? Because now with Doge, we're seeing that we're paying millions of dollars to watch shrimp run on treadmills. The dismantling of...
To me, makes sense. And there was an example when I was en route to the studio. And you will hear the next presenter give you some information that really reinforces the point. Now, this sister was very articulate. And she was speaking in the language that we all can understand without trying to be highfalutin. But one of the things that I noticed this morning listening to the radio, and this female said something, and I just read it in the paper. And it was almost just what the brother gonna say in a minute. She must have been reading it from the paper. I won't say which paper because I don't know, all of them got the same lie. But she said something in reference to that was all the way the opposite of what's true. Now, the problem is when these type of people speak that venom, they send us off on a false mission. And the energy we spend fighting and hating each other over miscommunication that we in different pockets are spreading without doing anything other than reading the newspaper is crazy. I use the clips so you'll see what a reference is, so you can hear it from somebody other than me. I don't want you to think I'm just coming in here running my mouth to be running my mouth. This is a commentary type situation. It's a commentary type situation simply because of the fact that, you know, the days of retro current team being in schools and being on the block, talking to young people, doing what we were doing, graffiti, wipeout, and murals and all these, no, we ain't doing that. So now we are commenting on things that can help not only our generation, but other generations, more contemporary generations, connect the dots. You gotta have more than one source. Hit this other source, Miss Imani.
Grade level. The average high school graduate in the United States reads at a 6th grade level at best. But you're upset that the Department of Education is closed down? Since it has existed in 1978 when it came into existence, the United States has continued a stupefying downward spiral where we now rank in the bottom 30% globally in terms of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And for all of you complaining, talking about, well, what's going to happen to my child that has an IEP? What's going to happen to my child getting school lunches? First of all, school lunches is now being moved to being handled by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. My children with IEPs, those IEPs are not going to be handled by and those with special needs as well, will be handled and have been moved to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which is headed by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who takes a great interest in America's health. Make America healthy again. Robert Kennedy is going to do a great job. But because Jasmine Crockett told you this was going to negatively impact us by the closing of the Department of Education, you believed it. Because CNN told you, you believed it. Shout out to Michaela Montgomery for waking it up on the last, I think it was I Keep It Classic podcast that she did. Y'all have to stop listening to the narratives. And first of all, how has its existence helped us anyway? Especially to my black folks. I just told you that the average black child, the average black boy or girl reads at a 4th to 5th grade level at max by the time they graduate high school. The average white, black, Hispanic, or Asian child that graduates from a United States public school reads at a 6th grade level. The media wants to create and craft BS narratives for you to get into an uproar because the media just flat out doesn't like President Donald John Trump. This is not, by the way, the first time that the U.S. Department of Education was on the chopping block, because President Ronald Reagan, who wanted to make America great again and who was the first one to use the slogan, "Make America Great Again," he sought to end the Department of Education because he saw the negative impact that it was having on our children as soon as it came into existence. And it's one of the interesting tenets of communism that advocates actually for public schools. What we are in is a literal war between nationalism and communism. Communism wants you to be taught, owned, and operated by the state, whereas school choice and parental involvement are central tenets of any genuinely nationalist policy, and Donald Trump, being a nationalist, is pro-parental involvement. If you don't want to be involved in the education of your children, maybe you shouldn't have kids. Period, point blank, end of story. And for those of you that have made it this far, if you've made it this far, put a church in the chat, and I need you guys to follow me on YouTube like never before. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm going to start doing long-form podcasts on YouTube because TikTok is good. TikTok is great, but TikTok doesn't always give me the reach that I need. We have to kill the nonsensical narratives. We have to wake up the truth, shame the BS, and call it out whenever we see it. From Crooked Crockett to Chuck Schumer to Crooked Nancy Pelosi to Pocahontas, we got to call them all out, expose the lies, promote the truth. Church. The average.
You know, that's the beauty of this. You see how emphatic and expressive the brother was, using his gestures? So those of us to do that, sometimes you all think that it's not the correct way to do it. No, it's exactly how we do things. See, you all, when I say you all, I'm not talking about individuals, I'm talking about the prototype. Have us trying to do what you do, the way you do it. That ain't how all of us operate. He was expressing it, but every gesture, every indication, intonation, amplified the message. So when you hear him and you heard the sister he referred to that came on before he did, you can get the feel. And that feel is how we learn and express. A lot of other people, a lot of other cultures do it in the way they do it. But we really learn and express differently than these other creatures. Remember, we are the one with melanin. So our energy, our electricity is what you just saw in the brother. And what you hear and see in me and others that you think are being angry, frustrated. No, we ain't being angry and frustrated. We are communicating with the spirit of our ancestors that see and know the history and the present. But we're going to run out of time, so I'm going to shut up. Go on and hit these other two sisters that deals with the Department of Education.
Segregation. They need to roll back education because a lot of y'all comprehension level is equivalent to an infant. I'm not understanding why y'all grown asses keep recycling the same BS just because that's what you want to hear. It's almost like that's what y'all want. Because if y'all wanted something different, y'all mindset would be different. Y'all can't even realize that y'all been segregated this whole damn time anyway. And we trying to debunk the BS that's been going on with the party of hate, the party of segregation, and the party of slavery. But I digress. A lot of y'all just love to play the victim. Y'all love to just recycle this same bigotry, hatred, racism. Why? Because it makes you feel like you got a voice and it makes you feel as though you're saying something. But if you was really using your voice correctly, you would be trying to change stuff and not recycling the same thing. Like Morgan Freeman said, if y'all want racism and all this stuff to stop, just quit talking about it. Because at this point, y'all the problem. I don't even blame the government no more. It's you. I'm so tired of hearing y'all saying Donald Trump rolling back segregation. They need to roll back education because a lot of y'all comprehension level is equivalent to an infant. I'm not understanding.
You know, I really like that sister's spirit and the way she articulates. And she and the other sisters you'll hear in a minute, they are addressing that issue. And I said Department of Education, but this segregation piece, as you saw. Man, there's so much response from that generation and younger about that we are not our ancestors. We don't care. We ain't going. We don't need to be what you sold us out to be. We want whatever that bring. Then maybe we'll take that $1.6 trillion that we let out of our community the first 17 minutes after we transact the check or whatever in the hell we do to get the cash, and we give it to everybody else but ourselves. It's ridiculous. Our money don't come back to us. It goes to everybody else. So with you going back to segregation, we'll be back to having our own black businesses. You understand? And that'll be a good thing. Separation, black businesses, a good thing. But these sisters that you will hear, their energy allows them to be played not only on CAN TV, but the radio too. Because the other sisters and brothers are spitting, but they're using what you all would call curse words. They're using what you would call profanity. But for us, it ain't that. For us, it's emphasis. You understand? It's amplification. But anyway, Mr. Monty, we got 2 minutes. Let's finish it out with this little sister.
Misinformed videos about segregation. Segregation is still illegal. Trump did not sign a bill to make slavery go back in place and segregation to be in effect for black and whites to be segregated. It was for DEI, diversity and inclusion. That's what it was for, which technically has everything to do with the LGBTQ and the trans community trying to use same-sex bathrooms or opposite-sex bathrooms when they're the opposite sex and things of those natures. It has nothing to do with black or white. So y'all need to actually read before you just listen to the stuff that you hear. Social media is one of the most misguided places that you will ever get information from, and a lot of people don't do their own research and study. The Bible says, study to show thyself approved. Stop listening to everything that y'all hear and do the research yourself. God bless you. Good morning, guys. So I just wanted to come in.
You know, the last sister was, her energy was different. This sister had a little church energy. And it was the type of energy that you could feel the truth in her and the other sister. But when I mentioned the difference between the feel is, she was speaking as a cousin. The other one was speaking as an auntie or mother. But this was just speaking as a sister, letting you know, man, go check it out for yourself. And that's what I'm going to say to you, or suggest to you. Go check it out for yourself. Stop being a parakeet. Till next week, Alafia. Peace and good health.